Audio Jungle.
Hello, and welcome to Business Focus, produced by the Greater Reston Chamber of Commerce. My name is Angela Inzerillo with Impact Business Solutions, and I'm privileged to be your guest as we bring some great work our local businesses are doing in the community. This week, I'm very excited to have in the house Mr. Kenny Mulligan with IDLife for our this week's podcast. So, Mr. Kenny, how are you? Welcome.
I am doing good. Thank you so much for having me on here. This is wonderful.
My absolute pleasure. I know you do a podcast yourself, so this is probably old school for you.
Yes, we do.
You do have a podcast, right? And we can talk about that too.
Okay.
Yeah. We got a bunch of time, so we'll make sure we talk about all of it. Anyway, I'm super excited to share all about what you do with IDLife, and you've been doing it for quite a while, quite a number of years, but I'm guessing that you did something before that. So how did you kind of get into the world of IDLife?
Very simple, simple way of getting into it. But I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis back in '92.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm putting my age on myself here.
You're super young.
Yeah, I was super young. I was real little. And I struggled with it for 26 years.
Oh, wow.
And if some of the listeners aren't used to or know what MS is, it's an autoimmune disease. So it's in that family. It's where your body attacks itself for some crazy reason. Nobody understands why, really. There's a lot of research in it, but they don't totally understand everything. But for me with MS, so it attacks the myelin sheath around your nerves, in your spinal cord and your head. So that's where all the nerve damage takes place. So as it's doing that, your body will struggle through physical nerve struggles, because your nerves control your movements of your body, plus they control sensations. So it would affect my nerves. So you'd feel tired. You'd feel, fatigue is extreme. You would feel weak. And then you would also feel pain. It's pretty crazy. And then you'd lose mobility.
Like you could be doing anything and you were feeling this, whether you're sitting watching TV or
Yeah. So what would happen with me is it pretty much, because it's different with everybody. With me, it would manifest itself in 2 attacks a year. And the attack, so when the first onset lasted 3 to 4 months, it was really hard. It was, I was in the hospital going through stuff and had trouble walking, and that was scary. You're in your mid 20s, late 20s or whatever. And here you are, slowly walking. And so it forced me out of a career that I was in, So anyway, I'd go through these 2 attacks and they'd last 4 to 6 weeks. I never know when they're hitting. Usually it was in the spring, and spring could be anywhere from March to somewhere in June. I would go through an attack, and then in the fall, you go through another one. And as you're going through it, it just continues to get harder on you. And sometimes you lose sensations. There were times where I think only 2 or 3 times I actually used a cane, just because I'm stubborn. But if we went out anywhere, it was hold on to the shopping cart, because I needed the strength. Going from the car into the store was hard, because you were wiped by the time you get in there. That's how it was.
Wow.
Now, once you go through it, and you get over it, your body starts, this is how it was with me. My body would start to recover, go back to normal. It'd take almost 2 to 3 months before you're fully, I'd wake up one day and say, oh, wow, I think I'm back to normal, kind of thing. And you go back to normal activity, life was normal. And then it would hit again. And when it hits
where were you at the time?
I was in Jersey.
Okay. So you weren't down.
Yeah, we were living in New Jersey at that time. Actually,
was
no,
this
Pennsylvania.
in your family? Pennsylvania. Was this in your family at all?
No, they say it's not hereditary.
Okay.
Which is weird. Although I have other family members who have autoimmune diseases, and actually a cousin who has MS too.
As well. Okay.
So so it's weird.
Yeah. So you wake up one day and you're like, okay, I can walk a little bit better.
Yeah. So, then you start to recover. But, going through the attack, often they put you on steroids, and high doses of steroids. I was on, usually a few times you do the IV drip, which was high dose, and then you go down to 80 milligrams. So if anybody's ever been on prednisone, 80 milligrams is a lot. Like a lot of people just go on 5 or 10, for a few days to get over something. Yeah. And so you get extremely hungry, and you also get extremely angry. Your emotions go haywire. And, I'd be on them for a month and a half sometimes, because I would get on high dose and slowly taper. And then I was also on a daily injection.
Oh,
So pretty much, I mean, it fluctuated how they were giving the drug, but pretty much it was a daily injection, and it was supposed to slow down the progression of MS.
I'm
And
going to
so
guess
that
you
that
never get used to it though. I mean, like you said, it's still affecting your everyday life in some
yeah,
way.
it does. The biggest one was not knowing what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
Mm-hmm.
things are great. We're out playing with the kids. We'd go hiking. I mean, we did a lot of stuff with the kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if on a Monday, I started feeling a little off, I'm not sure if it's coming or it's not. By Wednesday or Thursday, I usually know. By
Mm-hmm.
Friday, it could be
Mm-hmm.
really bad already. And then I'm calling the doctor, say, okay, send out the steroids or put me on the IV or whatever it is, because I just didn't want to get any worse. So I dealt with that for 26 years. And a friend of mine calls me up and says, Kenny, I want you to look at this company. And I'm like, I don't know. We've done some other things together
Yeah.
before, and
Yeah.
that's exciting, and he's a good friend, and, I trust him. But
Sure.
he's like, I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, well, I want you to look at it for your health, because he knew I struggled with MS. We've been buddies for 30 plus years. And so he said, it's health, it's customized nutrition. And, he explains the whole spiel, I'm like, whatever, it's vitamins. And that's exactly my response was like, it's vitamins. I didn't
Sure.
understand at that time what customized nutrition was. I didn't understand how important vitamins were, that we're not getting it from our foods. I didn't understand all that stuff, right?
Sure.
So I blow them off. I take the assessment, because we have a free assessment you take,
Okay.
and I got, it spits out my vitamins that I need, because it's getting customized. It's just for
Specific
you,
to
right?
you.
And so I look at it and I'm like, it's vitamins, right? So I blow them off. I blow them off. 4 months later, I go through another MS attack. And it
Yeah.
was bad. It was really bad. I was having trouble walking again. It was a long time since it had been that bad, where I felt like my feet were stumbling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I called him up and I said, okay, Rich, I said, I'll try these vitamins. And again, and other people can understand this. If you're struggling through any kind of physical ailment, especially if the doctors don't know what it is or whatever, you're looking for any kind of cure and you
Right.
try everything.
Yep. Absolutely.
But you also get very frustrated, because you tried that and you tried that and you tried that and you tried that, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't work. And you get frustrated. You spend some money and all that kind of stuff.
So the assessment
So
that you did, was that just questions that you answered about your physical?
yeah, so it asks you, it asks you specific questions like, do you use plastic containers in your food? Because that affects your nutrition, right?
Okay. Okay.
It affects the foods, it affects the toxins in your body. It asks, where do you live? So it takes into
Sure.
account what state you live in,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because like for a time we were living up in Binghamton, New York, and that's very cloudy. So my vitamin D was very depleted. So the assessment takes that into account. And yeah, so it's just simple questions. The research behind it, because there's over 14,000 peer-reviewed studies behind that research. There's a
Mm-hmm.
SciMed team behind that. And so they analyzed the nutrition that you're taking as well as the assessment. And I didn't understand it all at that time either. But so I take the assessment, it spits out my vitamin. I was like, okay, this is my customized nutrition. That's cool, whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And I'm not the kind of
Sure.
person who will just try it for a little while. Like, I'm like, you commit to something, commit to it for give it 3 to 6 months. You
Right.
got to give
Right.
your body. This is not a drug. It's
Silver bullet.
nutrition.
Yeah. It's
Yep.
yep. Yep.
And it's going to take your body, especially if, I don't know how old was I at the time, 50s, my early 50s, I
Mm-hmm.
guess,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so if I took 50 years to get that kind of damage to my body, okay, not eating properly, it's not going to happen overnight. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I started taking this nutrition, and I was a little nervous at first. I'm like, I haven't taken vitamins, like not, maybe a
So is
daily
it one
vitamin.
vitamin? Is it 10? Like, yeah, exactly. So because now you got to get into a new routine, right? So what was your
Yes.
customized plan?
So I started out with, what we do is we recommend a certain line, a certain vitamins for you based on what you need, what your body needs, what you're lacking. Then you choose based on a price point, because obviously each nutrition supplement is going to be more money. So I was trying to keep it a minimal. So I was like, okay, give me basics of what I need, and then give me the ones that are specific for MS. And
Okay.
that's where I started. Later on, I went back and said, okay, now which ones are specific for Alzheimer's? Because my dad had Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
So let
Mm-hmm.
me take those nutrients. So I just
Mm-hmm.
kept adding as time went on. So I don't know. Back then, I may have had 6 vitamins in the morning, maybe 6 at night, something like that.
Yep.
I forget what it was. And because you're supposed to take there's certain nutrients you should take in the morning, certain you should take at night,
Right.
and your body just absorbs those nutrients better. So I try this, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And now I'm in the middle of an MS attack. So for the average person, they probably won't even notice right out of the gate. You might notice when you stop vitamins, because you might notice the lack of energy and stuff like that. But 4 days into this, I started feeling different.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard to explain to people because we weren't like telling a lot of people. It was just like, I just tried this thing, see what it
Right,
does.
right, right.
But literally, I started feeling this energy that I had not felt in a long time. I quickly came out of that attack and I felt like I had a new pair of legs. I was able, in the next couple of months, my son, his birthday, we went out hiking. We hiked 10 miles up a mountain. I mean, I was
Wow.
like, this is crazy. I'm like, oh my goodness. But that was 7 years ago. So after 26 years, MS attacks twice a year, I have not had an MS attack since.
So nothing.
Nothing. Now I have some residual. So there are
Okay.
times where my legs will bother me because it did damage over those years,
Sure, sure.
but they don't last at all long. If it's my legs are hurt a little bit or something, it quickly, within a day or something, it's gone. But so there's some residual effects that the MS had. But I remember asking my doctor, I said, is it possible that your nerves can regenerate? He's like, well, he said, the one that's damaged, they can't. He said, but it's amazing what other nerves can do. And they learn to actually
Yeah,
bypass the
yeah.
damage. And so, yes, you can gain a lot of recovery back. So I was like, okay, that's where I'm going. So yeah, so
Oh,
it's been a
that
new life for me.
and it has, and it's a great story. And not everybody has MS, right? So
No.
the amount of treatment, if you will, like you said, your body took to the vitamins. What do you? I guess ideally, who else would really benefit
Who knows?
from the different? Yeah, I mean, because I think to
That's a good
myself, yeah, I'm
question.
sure I'm not taking enough vitamin. The usual, right? I'm not eating right, I'm sure. So what do? I take supplements. So there's probably the right ones to take for me more so than others. Yes. So Who's this mostly
So
ideal for?
first of all, I think people need to realize vitamins are not a cure. Okay, so they're not a pharmaceutical drug where, okay, now you're starting to
Right.
feel, a miracle thing or whatever. They also don't cure anything. I mean, what they do is they give your body what it's lacking so that you
Hmm.
can have the best energy possible. And I believe our bodies are amazing things. So I believe they can heal and repair
Hmm.
themselves when they're
Hmm.
given the
Hmm.
proper nutrients. So who is it good for? I'm a firm believer now. I wasn't 7 years ago. Okay, I'm a firm believer we are all lacking nutrients.
Hmm.
And actually, CDC will report other research out there. 94% of Americans are either vitamin or mineral deficient.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
we're not getting enough from our foods. As well as you eat, our foods are just depleted. We need vitamins. On the flip side of that, not only are we depleted vitamin wise, but we have a poor American diet that's causing, and we know it's linked to diseases and everything else. There's a stat just released recently that 80% of those 20 years or older are now either overweight or obese. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So, who's it for? I think it's for everybody. So, if people are looking to get healthy, my goodness, it's a great place to
You know
start.
how people are. We all are, right? Unless my arm is broken, I'm not going to get it fixed, right? So how do I really know I'm unhealthy? Unfortunately, it becomes, I don't say habitual, but you sort of get used to feeling tired. You sort of get used to
You,
being in aches and pain. Oh, I'll just take more Advil. So I guess really it's how do people wake up and realize that they need to
that's a
do
good
something?
question. Usually we do it when it's too late. Usually
Yeah,
we'll do
no.
it
Yeah.
when now you're going to the doctor because you can't figure out why you're tired all the time.
Right.
And the doctor says, "Wow, we don't know. Let's do some testing." And don't hear. I can give you a great example. Our daughter, teenager, she was struggling with a lot. She had no energy, like
Hmm.
literally no energy, and she's a pretty high energetic girl. And we're like, "Oh my goodness, what's going on? What's going on?" So we took her to the doctor. Doctor's like, "I don't know what's going on." Fortunately they ran a blood panel checking some vitamins. Found that she had totally no vitamin D in her body at all. And again, living in Binghamton, New York, and all that kind of stuff. So they
Sure.
put her on vitamin D. That is all it was vitamin D. That was the only
Wow.
problem.
And
But if he had not guessed right and
right.
did the blood panel, he might have gone through all kinds of testing and everything else, trying to figure out what's wrong with her. Does she have this? Does she have that? Does she have that? Just vitamins. It was that simple.
Because you said it's custom, so there's an assessment. I understand you answer a bunch of questions, but don't you have some sort of DNA type of thing that
Yes,
you
we
guys
do.
do? Okay,
Yeah. So it checks the genetics as well. So you can take it to the next level, which I highly recommend
okay.
because genetically we're all very different too. So going back to vitamin D, I genetically have a vitamin D deficiency. So not only should I be taking a certain supplement based on our free assessment,
Hmm. Hmm.
but now when they saw the genetics, they're like, "Oh my goodness, we got to boost this up a little bit in you." That's what we're recommending because your body is just not absorbing enough vitamin D on a regular basis because you genetically can't. So let's give you more to compensate for that.
So
So
the
yeah,
biggest, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so the genetic report is amazing because it gives you, it's telling you the foods you should eat and not eat. It tells you the exercises you should be doing and not doing based for you
Right.
genetically. Plus, we test for MTHFR. Yeah.
You're very big
And
on the
I
MTFHR.
totally am because, and most people don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And, doctors are playing catch up and a lot of them aren't even testing for it. But MTHFR, so it's a number one, it's linked to the number one cause for miscarriages in the United States. That's huge. So if
Mhm.
anybody, has had a miscarriage, guess what? My first response is I wonder if this is MTHFR. And you can get tested and you can figure it out. And then guess what? The right nutrients and stuff like that, you can help counteract it. You really can. Now, again, it's not a cure, but man, if you give your body a fighting
Right.
chance, you might never have to experience it again.
And I'm guessing it's just not your normal blood panel test when you go to your doctor annually.
No, and here's the thing with a blood panel. Well, there's a couple things. First of all, the typical blood panel is a snapshot of your blood. So it doesn't tell you what's causing vitamin deficiencies, if there are any. Well, there will be, but what they are. Second, it's a snapshot. So it's today's results. If you've been out of the sun for a week, guess what? Your vitamin D deficiency is going to be low.
Mm.
Now, that might not be the normal case. Next week, you go back to normal, everything's fine. So you don't need to bump up your vitamin D that much. You might only have to supplement a little. So that's why it takes all that into account. It takes your lifestyle, where you live, all that kind of stuff in. The thing with the MTHFR that I'm just so passionate about. Like I went to a stroke awareness event the other day,
Mhm.
talking about some of the signs of stroke. I'm like, that'd be good to know. Let me go to that. And my first thought was like, wait a minute, I don't remember stroke being part of the MTHFR. Guess what? Came home, researched, said, oh my goodness, is this part? Guess what? It is.
Yeah.
So stroke is also linked to MTHFR. So MTHFR basically is a genetic deficiency that if you have one or two of the, there's two variants in each of the genetic pieces that we test. We test two different ones. And if you have any one variant in any of those, then there's things you can do. Can't cure it. Again, it's a genetic defect. But what's happening is your body is not absorbing nutrients because the MTHFR gene is the shutoff gene. It opens and closes every cell in your body so that it gets nutrients. It also removes the toxins in your body. So if you have two of the variants, again, it depends on what kind of combination, your body literally can be 90% incapable of taking out the toxins in your body.
Wow.
So guess what happens? At some point, your body hits overload, and then guess what? Something goes wrong, and then you start going to the doctor and saying, "Oh man, I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand what's happening." And MTHFR is now linked to, depression, anxieties, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. I could just go on and on and on. And it simply is if your body's not getting the right nutrients, it doesn't have what it needs to give your body energy and to fight against these things. So depending on your body, guess what? You're gonna you may end up with one of those things. Now, could you still end up with it? Sure.
Right. I was just gonna say some things you can't control, and a lot of this is not really meant to scare people, right? So we're not here to be like run out and go take all these. It's really, to me, it's like about awareness, right? First of all,
it is absolutely,
and just not accept the fact that we're in pain or that we're tired or whatever. And there's a lot of things we know we can do about it, but to me, just it sounds really easy to just get information and then make the proper decision.
Yeah,
I'm all
absolutely.
about information.
Yeah.
So like I said, I don't want to go out and scare people on this and your story. Thank you for bringing your story here. And I think you've got an extreme story. I mean, I know there's a lot in between. So how can those folks watching learn more? Like, what's the first step? Contact you, or how can they learn more about, I think you
can easily contact me. And, again, you can go research MTHFR. Anybody can look that up on the internet.
Yep.
And again, doctors are, just to be aware, doctors, a lot of them don't know about it yet. They honestly don't know. It's so new. It's so newly discovered. It also is being more, I guess, studied probably on the nutrition side than possibly on the medical side. Again, that's just my theory. That's not, facts or, not based on anything. Just because, doctors are great. Don't get me wrong. We have doctors that work with IDLife, but most have never been trained in nutrition whatsoever because only 25% of medical schools require a nutrition course. So they just don't know about it. It's not their fault. It's just that they have never been educated. So you have to seek, and that's why I like nutritionalists and stuff like that, to have the information that's in a different path. That's all.
100%.
And so I think, people need to be aware. We need to be more educated. We live in one of the greatest, the greatest country in the world. Information's at our fingertips. So just research and, but check sources, always check sources. Don't just take somebody's word for it. There's a lot of garbage out there on the internet.
You think? Yeah, perhaps
Yeah,
a little bit. And everything, if it's on the internet, it must be true. Kenny, thank you for being here and enlightening us. I really appreciate it, because it really is important to be aware, even if we are able to just impact or, affect one or two people to actually, pick up the phone or call you or contact more or learn more. It's great. Before we go, and I'll make sure all your information scrolls up so people can contact you. And I know you're supposed to subscribe and like and do all those wonderful things on podcasting world. You have a podcast yourself, so why don't you give us a quick plug on that one?
Oh, sure.
Mr.
So
Kenny
me and my
Mulligan.
brother, I work with my brother in IDLife. Actually, we're both part of IDLife.
Oh,
He's a physical therapist as well. But we've been working his business now for 6-7 years together. But we were driving to one of our conferences, and we both were saying, hey, I've been thinking about doing a podcast, and both of us been thinking about this for a year. So through that, we said, you know what, let's play off our name,
of course,
and let's encourage people. And so we call the podcast is Take a Mulligan.
Take a Mulligan. I love it.
And so everybody doesn't know what that means. It means basically take a second chance, try it again. And so we just really want to encourage and inspire people to say, you know what, give it a second chance. Tying into nutrition here, it's like, you know what, a lot of people are struggling, give it a second chance. Don't give up. Your bodies are amazing things, absolutely amazing things. So yes, we have guests on and stuff like that to just, again, encourage people to say, go for it, go for it again.
Well, let me tell you, you're definitely going for it. You joined the Reston Chamber just about 3 months ago, and here you are on the show, and you're jumping all in. Yeah, how's that been?
So yeah, I will definitely give a plug for the chamber here. So it is, I went to our first event that you guys were hosting when I moved to the area back in late January. So that was my very first event. And then I was like, you know what? This seems like a great bunch of people. I live in this area. And if I want to get to know people, you join a chamber. That's where you learn. And one of the amazing things I find about the Reston Chamber is, meeting people like yourself. And we got a great lead share group that's part of the chamber, but is just the willingness for people to help each other. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, you do that? Okay. And it's not a kind of attitude like, oh, I don't need a painter, so forget it. All of a sudden you're like, you're a painter? Have you talked to such and such? And it really is how people are connecting. So if you really want to get connected in the Reston, Herndon area, you got to be part of the Reston Chamber. It's just like a non-negotiable to me,
There you go. No, and you make a great point. And you're one of those who've reached out and are being supportive and are giving back. And that's how, one, your business grows, but how the community grows and the engagement. Yeah. Having been a member for 15 years, I've seen different aspects of it, right? But community is at the top, is at the forefront of why, we're all successful and the chamber is successful. Kenny, again, thanks for being here. I look forward
thanks for having me.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you in Lead Share, seeing you at another event, of course. And I'm going to go check out the podcast.
Okay, sounds good.
But yeah, thanks. Like I said, thanks for being here. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Okay, take care.
Stay in touch with us for future episodes. Like, subscribe, and share. See you next time.
Audio Jungle.